So I'd like to now call to order the Tiburon Town Council meeting for February 19th. Could you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks. Councilmember Fredericks, are you here?
Was that Frederick?
Are you here? Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Nick Farr.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Wellner.
Here.
And Mayor Thier.
Here. Okay, at this moment, I'd like to take public comment on any items not on our agenda this evening. Is there any public comment in the room or online?
I'm just going to address the members of the public present with instructions briefly. If you're calling in on Zoom and would like to make a comment during this meeting, please use the raise hand feature of Zoom, which will indicate to me you would like to make a comment. You can find the raise hand button on your webinar controls bar on the bottom of your Zoom window or smartphone screen. If you're calling in using a phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. And with that, I am seeing none online.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that brings us to the consent calendar. Is there any member of the town council that would like to pull an item from consent? Any member of the public? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion on the consent calendar?
Second.
Lee, if you could call the roll.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes.
Councilmember Nick Farr.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner.
Yes.
Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay, there's an action item A1, Main Street closure request. We will first see if there's a staff report. After that, we will take public comment. Is there a staff report?
Very brief, Madam Mayor. Tonight, council is considering approving a closure of Lower Main Street on May 16th, 2025 from 4 to 9 p.m. This would be for an event that the ranch would like to put on, celebrating their 50th anniversary. And Jessica Hotchkiss is here representing not only the ranch, but the 70s apparently. And she certainly would like to give a short presentation. I would just remind council that in 2023, the council voted unanimously to limit the number of Lower Main Street closures to 6 per year, reserving 3 of those for Chamber of Commerce events, and then reserving 3 for council to approve as well. If this closure is approved this evening, this would be the second of the 3 closures that council has reserved for their approval, leaving 1 more for the calendar year. And with that, my staff report is concluded. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I would like to ask first if our director of the Belvedere Tiburon Ranch would like to speak. Would you like to say some comments, Jessica? Great. But first.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I am Jessica Hotchkiss, Recreation Director at the ranch, and I'm here tonight to invite you all to travel back in time with me 50 years ago to the summer of '75, when Belvedere Tiburon Recreation was founded. 50 years ago, 15 recreation programs for adults and children were offered each season, including the very popular, listed on this sheet, from winter of 1975, the popular 70s classes of macrame, decoupage, batik, yoga, and slimnastics, a class for women to achieve body perfection. 50 years later, we are known as the ranch and offer over 100 classes each season with a more modern approach, like computer coding, yoga for the body and mind, and improv classes. To celebrate such an achievement and give back to our supportive community, we would like to throw a free 1970s party on Friday, May 16th on Main Street. The event will include the 70s cover band, Shake It Booty Band, and interactive booths will have free giveaways. It'll be just like a Friday night on Main, but the theme is our anniversary. We hope you will approve this event and will join us in the 70s as well. Any questions?
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation, especially the music. I love it.
I'm feeling it.
Do we have questions from any council members? Okay. Okay, thank you so much. At this moment, we will take public comment. Are there any members of the public here that would like to make a comment?
You know you want to say something.
Are there Any members, any
They're
members
smiling.
online?
Seeing none.
Seeing none. Okay. Um, so now, we can take this to discussion and a potential motion. Is there someone who would like to start off?
I'll just say it,
Glad to make a motion to approve this event.
How about our representative from the ranch? On the ranch?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve this Main Street closure request for Friday, May 16th for the ranch's 50th anniversary project, and thank Jessica Hodgkiss and the ranch staff for many years of amazing programming for the town of Tiburon and surrounding areas.
I would like to second that. I'd also like to say that Jessica is not only an amazing individual, but I have seen you work your way up from, I think when you started at the ranch, you were answering the phones and my children were running around screaming and I was begging to get into the programs that had closed. But truly, your leadership at the organization and the work that the ranch does in general, just for people who don't know, the ranch not only provides programs for community members and seniors and people as young as me, but they run after-school programs for children. And, you know, when I moved to Tiburon as a single mother, they were the only, pretty much the only game in town where I could have my kids and know that they were going to be in classes that were enriching and also well cared for. So I'm 100,000% in favor of this and whatever we can do to help. I hope you will call on the town. So there is a motion, and are there any more comments from?
yeah, I just think it's
Sure.
sounds like a great party and a great theme and wonderful cause. So let's celebrate it. That sounds great.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will have a vote. Lee, would you like to call?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes.
Councilmember Nick Farr.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner.
Yes.
And Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we are moving on to action item 2, Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. Consider appointment of chair and vice chair of the task force.
Yes, Mayor and council members, this is an annual appointment item. In previous years, you have requested to consider this one-year term appointment at the second meeting in February, and that's where we are today. So this is just a one-year appointment of the chair and the vice chair of the DITF, the Diversity Inclusion Task Force. And according to the bylaws, the chair should be a member of the council, but the vice chair does not have to be a member of the council. And that concludes my report.
Okay, do we have any public comment online or? in
Seeing
person?
none.
Okay, so I will leave it to the council.
And so the current chair is you and the current vice chair is Tina.
Gina Packaday.
Go ahead.
And do either or both of the chair and vice chair want to repeat and be reappointed? I'm sorry that Tina left, but,
I think both do.
oh, good.
Both would like to continue.
Well,
Okay.
let's make a motion.
Yeah, I'd make a
to
motion that we
appoint-
appoint
Yeah.
Mayor Thier as the chair and Vice Chair Peccaday as the vice chair.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Would you like to call the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes.
Councilmember Nick Farr.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner.
Yes.
Mayor Thier.
Yes.
Should we have taken public comment?
I think I
think you
did.
did.
Did? Okay.
Okay, so moving on to action item 3, transportation and infrastructure study. Do we have a staff report?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Just very short. This item was placed on the agenda at the request of Councilmember Nick Farr. As council knows, we're in probably past the midway point of the traffic infrastructure study. And early on in the process, and I apologize, I'm trying to catch up here with an advisory board or committee or advisory group was formed, which to which the council ultimately appointed two members, Councilmember Fredericks, and then subsequently appointed Councilmember Wellner. Other members of the advisory group include Timothy Burr, Post member, Sally Wilkinson, City of Belvedere Council member, Bob McCaskill, the chair of the Tiburon Peninsula Traffic Relief Joint Powers Authority, Derek McGill from TAM, and we also have two folks from Caltrans who are on that. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And I will turn it over to
Yeah, so
Councilmember Nick Farr.
So we, I think as a group had indicated that we did want the town manager to request from the city of Belvedere that they partially or in some way contribute financially. So I think fiscal impact, there's something there. I know it's not indicated in the staff report, but that was the request from town council. Does the town manager have an update in terms of the request to the city of Belvedere to financially contribute to the traffic study, which does have a major impact on both the city of Belvedere and the town of Tiburon?
Just as directed by council, I had emailed the city manager of Belvedere. I don't have the date in front of me, but several months ago. Didn't receive an official response, but in one conversation, he indicated that the council was not inclined to put that item on the agenda for the Belvedere City Council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that update. I think that, something we've talked about, I think both I think the last time we reviewed this as an agenda item, there was some concern with the makeup of the traffic study with Belvedere residents, given that they weren't inclined to help contribute even nominally in some way to this. So I wanted to bring that back up to this group once we had, I think, an indication from Belvedere on whether or not they were interested in contributing, and open it back up for discussion and see if anyone else had an issue with that.
Sorry, Councilmember Fredericks, please.
So let me comment on that. Their traffic affects us. I think having them in the loop of this study helps us. When the study is done, whether they contribute money or not, they will have access to the data. I don't think we have anything to gain by changing their seats. And so I'm really agnostic. I find it helpful to hear from them. Am I happy that they don't want to contribute money? Actually, I'm agnostic with respect to that too. If it were to continue for several years, I might start to whine a bit, but for now, I think the benefit of having them on the committee outweighs the cost.
Yeah, I
Vice
would,
Mayor Wellner.
thank you. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think when we came up with the idea of the study, it was to solve or to attempt to solve one of the most intractable problems that bothers our residents. And I agree with you. I fully understand this kind of idea that it's a shared problem and they should be willing to fund it. On the other hand, I don't think when we first came up with the idea and asked for it to happen, I don't think at that stage we went and kind of asked for it to be a joint project. In a sense, I think we like the idea that we're in total control of our project. So, it's a Tiburon study, it's a Tiburon effort. I think it's useful for us to have on the advisory committee a number of different folks, like, Caltrans isn't paying for it either, but they're on it because we need their input. Transportation Authority of Marin, it's kind of same thing. I think it makes sense for us to have City of Belvedere attending, commenting. But really, I think from the beginning, this has been a Tiburon project to solve a problem that really bothers our residents. And it's also a safety issue for us. The whole evacuation route issue is one that's really big and only going to get worse as we increase units downtown. So, it's not great that they didn't take the hint or the direct request and say, okay, we'll toss in some money. That would have been nice. But I think, as Alice said, I think we benefit from their input. And I think it's really a study that we wanted to do because we need to do it for Tiburon.
Yeah, and I would thank you. I would just say, we have the advisory group to help guide the product and make sure we get the best product. And we just heard from our two representatives on it that this is the way to get the best product. So my feelings on the subject are just not strong enough to push.
Just
But
wanna
I do wish they contributed.
I just want to add one thing in. So when this issue first came to us, there was a lot of talk about the funding. And I think Councilmember Nickfar is bringing that issue back because a lot of us talked about the fact that, the JPA is on there, the Tiburon Peninsula Traffic Joint Relief Powers is on there. That's Belvedere and Tiburon. But the idea that, this is a study that affects all of us, especially Belvedere, because Belvedere has to drive through Tiburon to get anywhere. So, I just want to, talk a little bit about why I think Councilmember Nickfar brought this back, because it was a big issue at the time that we looked at this committee in the beginning. But go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I tend to agree, but I think what I'm concerned about is establishing a pattern of us paying for things on behalf of Belvedere and Belvedere not being willing to contribute to anything.
That's a pattern that exists already.
Okay, all right. Well, it seems like I stumbled upon it.
No.
You see, I mean,
agreeing
with all
with
due
you.
respect, Councilmember Wellner, it seemed like this was the first time that it ever happened.
Oh, no.
It's
So I think the concern that I have is that we're continuing to enable this type of behavior by allowing this and other things that we'll get to later in the agenda. And I don't agree that Caltrans isn't paying for this, because Caltrans is paying for and going to help us with this problem. The Tiburon Peninsula Traffic Relief Joint Powers is financially contributing to this, and they aren't a municipality at all. And so that's where the only group that's not directly financially contributing to this in one way or another is the city of Belvedere. And I think that's where, to go back to an example of in college where, if you want a keg cup, you got to kick in $5. We're not just giving out, free keg cups. You can fill in a better, I'm sure you guys can come in with a better example than that, but
I like that one. I think.
I'm not saying they should, do the whole thing, but I think some nominal amount, just sort of a good faith amount at a minimum would make me feel pretty good about them as a partner and them as a collaborator, rather than sort of where we are now which is, what the town manager expressed, which was not a chance.
Yeah, it's a free ride.
Yeah, Okay, Councilmember Fredericks,
So,
please.
yes, this is a pattern of behavior that precedes the 20 years I've been on this council. I think if we really want to work toward a clear road of travel for all of us, we need to take the high road.
Mm.
Alice, da-dum. Okay, do we have more comments on this?
So I guess I'll sort of wrap my thoughts with, I'm not necessarily advocating for any change on this particular item, but I would like it noted within this group that there is a pattern and that we're either enabling this behavior or hoping to curb it in some way, because I just got elected, and one of the big things in the election was What are we doing with the town's money here? And are we being good stewards of the town of Tiburon's money? So I'll leave it there.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing this up. I think we all appreciate it. The discussion.
Certainly going forward, I totally understand what you're saying and we need to incorporate that. You know, and go, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, any more comments on that? Okay, so now we're going to move into our discussion items. And the first discussion item is Belvedere Tiburon Joint Recreation Committee, an update from the Ranch Board and discussion regarding the committee. That should have said an update from our director on the Ranch Board, which is Isaac Nickfar.
All right, thank you.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you're doing an update. Okay.
No, I think that's just me.
Yeah, no, it is you.
Yeah.
Okay, you shook your head.
Jessica's the director. I'm just the representative from the town council.
Okay, well, I thought it was Board of Directors. He's a director on the board is what I meant.
A
Okay,
director, not.
I will say
Yeah.
a director, not a
Right.
director.
So
You know, I mean,
I'll keep this brief. But I think a couple of key items here. Number one, I think what to echo my comments, what Jessica and the ranch staff, as well as the ranch board, I think they're doing a phenomenal job of providing an excellent level of service and just incredible programs across all ages within the Tiburon Peninsula, and that encompasses, from my understanding, East Corte Madera, Strawberry, Tiburon, and Belvedere. Even though it's a joint powers authority between Tiburon and Belvedere, it services many people in the surrounding communities. Truly an amazing staff and group that are driving this. I think the second point I wanted to bring up from a financial standpoint, it looks like the ranch has recovered from COVID and is being managed very well and is getting back from a time when I think it was a little in the red to being on the good side of that line. And again, I credit Jessica Hodgkiss and her staff for doing that in adding new programs and also being very cost conscious and doing a great job of making sure that it's a well-run organization. The third item that I wanted to bring up is that there is an effort that was covered by the ARC and was a Belvedere City Council agenda item, which is to renegotiate some contracts, it appears, with both the town of Tiburon from Belvedere and with the ranch. And those seem to be driven from a cost-cutting perspective, and they are seeking to reduce some of Belvedere's costs. And I think specifically look to end what is a payment to the town of Tiburon, which is something that I think we're probably going to need to investigate and address at some point. So I wanted to make sure I brought that to everyone's attention as kind of a third bullet point. I don't know that we need to create a subcommittee for that. I think in terms of updating contracts between the ranch and Tiburon, that seems to be something that lawyers can come to agreement on. I think Greg can handle most of that, in my opinion. But I did want to make everyone aware that there is another item that may be headed our way in terms of Belvedere looking to end some of the costs that they're paying to Tiburon on an annual basis, which I think, Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the ones in question is somewhere in the 30 to 40K per year. I think that's what it comes down to. So, yes, Jack.
So, and is it the case that Belvedere doesn't just want the ranch to end whatever expenses are associated with the revenue that they're getting from Belvedere? They just want us to pay they want to restructure it such that we pay what they don't? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I think it comes down to building maintenance and whatever else that money is being set aside for right now. And Belvedere wanting to end that annual cost for them.
But have someone else pay for it.
Well,
We don't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
In addition, isn't there also, some, issue about Belvedere wants to now charge for space, like lease space back to the ranch? Is that?
I'm not
some
sure.
of the
I'm not.
centers?
Yeah, I think that's unclear, but
Okay.
there was a discussion of redoing contracts between Belvedere and
The
the
contracts,
ranch,
okay,
which
okay.
doesn't impact,
Okay,
I think, the town of Tiburon. But the pieces that do are that Tiburon, I think there's an ask for between the ranch and the town of Tiburon to update or re-update some of the contracts that have to do with some of the facilities that the ranch uses.
okay. So, I would just like to say, my concern here with what you've just said is I would not want to see the ranch lose any money or any funding. The reason for that is because the ranch actually supports themselves based on programming and other money that they get in. And that is not usually how it works. Normally, a rec and park department would be a department of the town and receive general fund money and receive money and be supported by the town. So my concern with what you reported is that I don't want to see, the ranch has worked very hard to balance their budget, and I would hate to see that become a hardship, any of these renegotiations or contracts be a hardship. So that is just something I wanted to say. And Councilmember Fredericks, please go ahead.
For the actual physical facility that joint rep, the ranch occupies is in need of maintenance. Is this would not come out of their programming revenue, right?
You may be referring to the Parks Master Plan, which did an assessment of all the facilities that the town owns, one of which is the ranch facility. And I don't have it in front of me, and I don't quite remember the details, but I believe it identified a small number, I believe, of suggested maintenance items to upgrade. I don't think any single one of them was particularly large, but I don't have the list in front of me, but you may be referring to the Parks Master Plan assessment. That's one of the, that Councilmember Nick Farr alluded to a number of agreements that are in place. One of which is a lease agreement between the JPA, the ranch, and the town of Tiburon that owns the building. That current lease agreement, I believe, is 10 years old. It has language in it regarding maintenance and who's responsible, but presumably that would be one of the agreements that, as Councilmember Nick Farr said, probably does not require a subcommittee to work on, that staff, along with attorneys, can work out a draft of that and bring it to, it would end up going to the ranch board for approval, as well as the town council.
I think your question is who's responsible for maintenance now? And so my understanding is that Belvedere's payment that they make right now that is under question is for maintenance and for other issues because they didn't want to take on a direct percentage involvement. That was the original intent of the agreement. And that Tiburon is also responsible for maintenance on the building. And I'm sure the town manager can help sort of clarify what that is in the agreement's current form. But it is shared in in a way that was originally reported as a mortgage payment, but it is not a mortgage payment from Belvedere. It is a maintenance payment because they originally did not want to take on a direct percentage of building maintenance.
And that is what I wanted to know, whether the contracts they want to renegotiate covers that.
Yes.
So
Effectively, they're asking to take their maintenance cost to zero and for Tiburon to continue to carry maintenance costs.
Great.
Thank you.
Do we have other members that would like to speak? Okay.
Update, I
Not
appreciate the
trying to-
update and then
Okay.
keep us up, you know, how,
Yeah. And is there any, I think I already took public comment, but I'll take it again if anyone would like to speak. Okay. So now we will move on to discussion item 2, report from the ad hoc subcommittee on outdoor dining. Is there any public comment?
Seeing none.
So, do you want to give the report or do you want me
Sure,
to
I'm
give
happy
the
to.
report? Okay, Councilmember Wallner, go ahead,
All right, so
and I'll chime in.
I spoke briefly with Ben and with Greg at different times before this. So if I get any of the background wrong, please don't hesitate to chime in and correct me. But basically, our task was to take a look at the report that was provided by staff now quite a long time ago about the outdoor dining that is occurring downtown, and that is occurring on property that is the town's, right? And we've allowed it to continue despite the fact that there's no kind of formal agreements in place, while we cogitate about how to handle safety and cost and these various other issues. So I think our conclusion, I don't want to keep anyone in suspense. I mean, we think that certainly we need to have some kind of agreements in place, whether they're, I presume they're encroachment agreements or something related to their CUPs, that set forth the terms of how they can use the outdoor space. The key issue that was discussed by staff last time was a safety question. And the proposal, as you recall, was a combination of rule about how close to the curb you can get, combined with the idea of building physical structures in places that are very narrow. I think our conclusion, we spent a bunch of time visiting downtown and talking with folks about just their views. I think our conclusion is that the physical construction of barriers is not something that we want to encourage downtown. So on the other hand, we do want to create a policy or a rule that requires responsible management of outdoor dining. So our proposal is to include, and this is something that Ben can speak to maybe a little bit if you guys want to get into more detail about it, but whether it's part of the encroachment permit or it's a separate ordinance or whatever the form it needs to take, the idea would be to have a rule in place that if you're going to have outdoor dining, you have to maintain at least a 1 foot distance from the curb. And if you don't, that there's some kind of penalty that could be imposed in the form of essentially a citation. So the town would have the ability to periodically, inspect and make sure that people are adhering to the rule. The idea is not to be punitive, and the goal is not to get citations. It's just to create an understanding and a rule that if the restaurants are going to be using that space, which we really want to encourage because it's lovely to have outdoor dining, if they're going to be using that space, they also need to take with it the responsibility to monitor it and make sure that people are not getting too close to the street. Hand in hand with that, there are other provisions in an encroachment agreement that can be helpful, like insurance and indemnification and these kinds of various things that go along with getting an agreement with the town that protects the town from things that happen on the property of the town that is being allowed to be used for this purpose. So that's our recommendation. Our recommendation is, and I'll let Holly chime in, but the recommendation is basically we want to create an understanding that they need to keep some distance from the curb. And we want to make it enforceable in case someone is not living up to that standard. But we don't want to go the route of requiring any physical changes to the street.
Right. And part of what we did is we did a study. We went out numerous times over a time period. And we did find that the businesses are in compliance. So that was part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I
Businesses are in
think calling it a
compliance.
study is a bit much, but yes, we did,
Well-
we did check a few times to see what the situation was. And for the most part, people were staying reasonable distance from the curb.
Yeah, okay. So I think that we will be bringing that back. I don't know whether the format is actually an encroachment permit. I will talk to Ben and Greg about that as well. But I do think, the clear, strong message is that we want to, allow our businesses to keep doing what they're doing and, be able to successfully operate here in Tiburon.
Yeah, and the recommendation, just to be clear, the recommendation, and we haven't talked about this, but the recommendation from Ben was to come back with a policy document that we can review and vote on, so that, because it doesn't require an ordinance per se, because these are permits. But doing it that way would make very clear what our view is.
And if I may, what I said was, I'm not sure if it requires an ordinance, but looking at it more, we probably would need an ordinance amendment and probably a policy. I just don't know what exactly we need yet, but whatever we need is going to require council action. So we'll bring that
Right.
forward. If
In
there's
some combination.
in some combination, if there's a consensus of at least 3 of you with the recommendation from the subcommittee.
Okay, and for the outdoor dining during COVID, that was an ordinance, correct? Or was it just
No,
an
that was
exception that we
That was
created?
our emergency powers. We
Our
issued
emergency
orders.
Okay, so we just did it under our emergency powers.
Correct.
So
But-
what was
but
the
the
document called?
An emergency order. And it's
Emergency order.
expired, and that's
Okay,
why we need
okay.
to have a policy in place to
Okay.
protect the city.
Got it, got it.
And currently, if I remember correctly, we're doing a pilot.
Well, we did, but that expired too, I believe.
Okay.
I think we're basically just not enforcing our land rights at this
Okay.
point, which we shouldn't do for long.
So a couple questions.
Yeah.
One is, how does this outdoor dining work impact Arc Row, if at all? Is there also, will this apply to Arc Row?
Our Arc Row right now does have outdoor dining. There are tables that I see. They are all more than a foot from the curb as well.
Okay.
But just to be clear, Arcro is unique in the sense that the owner, Zelinsky Properties that owns all that's considered one big parcel, by the way, actually owns the sidewalk.
Oh, so
The
it's
town does not
established
own the
property.
sidewalk on Arcro, whereas the right of, we own the sidewalks on
Okay.
Lower Main Street for the
And
most
then
part.
the other question is, I didn't hear anything about ADA compliance. I'm assuming that whatever policy or ordinance or document we put together is also going to be ADA compliant.
There are probably, that's a really good point. And in addition to that, I know that there's other things that Ben and Greg will include, such as the required available width for sidewalk.
Yeah.
Whatever the basic rules are that they need to follow in general with this extra curb requirement.
So just for clarity for me and a little bit more summary, when we brought this to you back in March, it was presented as an amendment to Chapter 16 of our zoning code, which was establishing a procedure which included the issuance of an encroachment permit and a right-of-way agreement with each business. And there was well, let me back up. That entire package was taken to the Planning Commission, which made a recommendation. Then we took those recommendations to you. It included a whole host of things, including
Which we're not
things.
recommending.
So you're saying that, and that's what I want to know. You're saying we're not bringing anything to you?
No, I think we've been clear about what's being brought. We
I-
just,
I
think that John kind of spelled it out.
I mean, the main thing we were focused on was the curb rule.
Right.
well, there seemed to be consensus in March on everything else other than this issue that you're speaking about this evening.
I think it
the-
would be
the dis-
helpful. I mean, I
don't
know
think
you may
we're
not be prepared to
embarrassed.
do this, but what is the everything else you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not really prepared to do it, and I'd be reading, but I'll just give you some examples. Space heaters must be located a minimum of 3 feet from combustible materials and located within the boundaries of the dining area. Water misters are prohibited. Electrical connections must occur from the business's meter. Electrical cords are not allowed across the surface of the dining area, but may be suspended at least 8 feet above the sidewalk. It's compliance with provisions of the building code. Business signage and logos may not be affixed on any of the fixtures. Sunshades may consist of retractable awnings and movable umbrellas, but not permanent roofs or shelters, and must have a minimum clearance of 7 feet. Be located within the boundaries of the dining area and have a stable base. I mean, I could go on. There's others.
Yeah, so I think what we're looking for is something more streamlined to be brought back to us. The goal is to allow us to, comply with all the rules, but allow us to encourage our businesses to keep doing what they're doing. And some of the things you mentioned would cause, I think, some of the businesses to have to change their awnings or change certain things. So that's what I'm concerned about. We don't want to create a huge cost to our businesses. They're already there. We found them in compliance, and we do not want to create something so complicated that people can't comply. The safety issues are paramount, but what you're mentioning are not safety issues necessarily. And if there's code sections that our businesses need to comply with, they're already complying irrespective of this ordinance or this encroachment permit. I think we should streamline it on to outdoor dining and not.
Are there any of the items listed there that are not currently being implemented?
It's difficult to say. I would note, though, that in the run-up to the March meeting and the Planning Commission meeting prior to that, we met several times with downtown businesses, and they were, as I recall, universally supportive of the proposal that we were making.
So I think that the committee has given its report. I want to see if there's consensus among the town council for the recommendations that John and I have come up with.
Yeah,
And this is going to come back to the council.
okay.
So, I would
I
just
guess
ask that it be brought back in a very streamlined fashion so that we don't have to go out and inspect every business again and see if the sunshade is a certain number of feet. I just, we really want to get this completed and have our businesses operating under, a rule that ensures safety, allows outdoor dining, and kind of streamlines the process. So it's easy for our businesses to apply, comply, and also if they aren't, a foot from the curb or the other things, then there will be some kind of enforcement. But I don't want to make it so complicated that we can't get it done.
Yeah, I guess I would say, I mean, they've been operating now for a very long time without any of these proposed rules in place. My thinking about it is less is more. I mean, basically, the issue that was raised, the way we were looking at it, the way we look at it, as the subcommittee is, the issue was raised it was primarily a safety issue. We wanted to deal with the safety issue. The key issues that were a part of that were distance from the curb and insurance and indemnification. If there are other critical issues that are on that list that you want to present to the council as part of this change, we can talk about them. But I don't think that some of the things that you listed rise to the level of needing to be added to this rule. So, I would just keep it simple was the idea.
But is it the case that these are recommendations from the planning commission that we debated, but we never acted on? Is that what I'm hearing?
We never acted on because we reacted very strongly and very negatively to the suggestion of physical barriers.
Yep.
That was the issue. So we never really focused on the other matters.
So So just my comments would be, I love the fact that you guys investigated this and those are your areas of focus. I really appreciate that. I definitely want those incorporated, but I would prefer to have all of the detail. Because even though the businesses aren't doing them now, I think it would be bad if someone decided to put an electrical cord across the sidewalk or use electricity from someone else's meter. Like, this is just sort of planning commission wonkiness that seems
Yeah,
to
I
fit.
mean, I guess what I would suggest is, I don't, like I said, I don't mind having real safety issues included. What I would not include are things that are already illegal, like using someone else's electricity. That's just never going to be legal, no matter whether it's
enough.
in the lease or not. Or things that are already code that people can't do because they're already code. So I guess I would eliminate redundancy and just try and be specific to what's being done here. And if there are other issues that need to be added, we can talk about them, recognizing that there's a risk that if we start focusing on other issues, we may have disagreement. But I would just keep it as simple as possible, focusing on safety and protecting the town and its residents.
Right, and I do agree with Vice Mayor Wellner. You know, I think that we've spent a lot of time trying to get to where we are today. I do think a lot of the things mentioned are covered by the code, including extension cords and electrical wires, and, you know, that is code. So let's come back and get a streamlined version, and hopefully we pass it and we send our businesses along their way. So did you have a comment? Did someone else have a comment or?
I mean, I
Okay.
just wanted to say, we can certainly put in, I'm sure it's already in there, a catch-all sentence that says you need to adhere to
Code, yeah.
the code and the law in general in your activity on our property.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think
That's a
we need
great
someone in our
suggestion.
building, you know, our building official to take a look at some of those provisions to make sure they're covered by either the fire code.
Exactly.
I mean, the heaters, I guarantee you, that is a fire code requirement. Every city has that as a requirement because it's dictated by the fire code.
Right.
So if they are captured in the building code or fire code, it's less of a concern. So I think we need to understand, are they captured somewhere
That's
else?
exactly right.
If they are, we'll just have a catch-all. If they're not, we'll highlight that in the staff report. So you know, here's something that was in the ordinance that is not captured by anything, that is not part of the proposal.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
good
was
to
gonna
me.
ask, I was actually gonna ask about that. Thank you for covering that, Ben. The other comment I have is thank you for to the subcommittee for looking into this. And my hope is that we can resolve this quickly
Yeah, just get it done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
so that we can move on.
Okay, and moving on, are we ready to move to the next item? Any more comments? Okay, great. So we are now to discussion item 3, Friday Nights on Main. Do we have any public comment?
Seeing none.
Okay, so I actually asked to put this item on the agenda. I would very much like to see us bring back Friday Nights on Main. Our residents have been asking for a very long time and really love the Friday Nights on Main. We did pass a thing at the town council that said we could only have a certain number of street closures on Main Street. I wanted to put this on for discussion to hear from my colleagues and see, eventually I would like to bring it back and have us amend that policy that we made in order to allow for Friday Nights on Main. And I believe it would be approximately 4 to 5 more street closures, if I'm right, per year, in order to, you know, if we were able to do the usual lineup on Friday Nights on Main, which was like 5, I think, Friday Nights on Main. Is that right? I think there's 5. But that's why I put this on the agenda. I think that our residents love it. And it's a really great way for them to visit downtown and go to our businesses. So that's what that's about.
I mean, I like the idea too. I'm trying to remember the conversation that we had that caused us to take it off. And please let me finish. And what we were talking about was, I think it was really the chamber that came in and told us that businesses didn't like it. And so if we're going to have a conversation about bringing back Friday Nights on Main, we should include all the people that were in the room last time, so that we're not just swinging back and forth, approving it and then disapproving it.
And John said exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, and I can say that I have talked with the chamber. I have talked with other businesses. There were certain things that the businesses did say that, our, hotel did not want the band across from them. So there were very specific things that the businesses wanted. What I was trying to say is that we never had a discussion about having Friday nights on Main or not having Friday nights on Main at this town council. So that's what I was trying to clarify when you were speaking. The issue was about closing Main Street, and it was about, how many times to close Main Street. The chamber did decide just not to have Friday nights on Main, but that was a chamber decision. It was not a council decision. I've heard from many residents during the campaign and over the years after we didn't have Friday nights on Main that they would love to see it brought back. So
Yeah, I
I'd
mean,
love to
if it-
just hear people's
If it
comments.
ultimately comes, between something that the residents really want and that businesses don't want, then we're going to do what the residents want. But I just would like to hear from both sides so that we can understand what the issues
Yeah,
were.
and
It was a long time ago. I just want to remember what.
well, it
the
wasn't
issues
that long ago. Well, it depends on how old you are. To me, it was not that long.
were.
And it also seemed to me that there were businesses who were very emphatic about not benefiting from it, not being harmed by it, but not particularly
Yeah,
benefiting.
no, I,
And some of the restaurants, and I can't remember, it might have been a private conversation I had, thought it didn't increase business. It just made it harder for them to serve, and people liked it, so they were willing to do it. So I would like to see what the
like to
support
hear,
of the
yeah.
businesses who gave that kind of feedback are, not just from the chamber as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. And, okay.
No, please.
I was just gonna say, last time we kind of had the benefit of the director of the chamber. We tasked her to sort of create the negotiation among the businesses. And then she came with a recommendation from them, which, to your point, we could ignore or not, but like, it would be nice to hear from the business community broadly. And if we can get the chamber director to assemble that cohesive perspective from them, that would be great to hear.
I also don't think it's binary in the sense that on the one hand, we do want to know how the businesses feel, but also we want to know how, to Holly's point, if there are aspects of it that we can modify to make it most
Yeah.
beneficial to businesses. So, is the timing what it should be? Is the location what it should be? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and overall, I would love more. I think they're great, and I agree.
love them, so
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's kind of,
Okay, please, Councilmember.
Yeah, I think there was a time where there were a lot of them.
yeah, there was like every,
Yeah, where it was
Friday all
like every,
summer,
every
right?
weekend.
yeah.
And I think what happened is maybe that was a little too much because they became sparsely attended. But I think if they can have a lot of bang for the buck and can have hopefully a positive impact on all the downtown businesses, and that they can be inclusive of all of downtown, and and aren't too disruptive. I think there's a consideration around Corinthian Island and things like that. As long as they're not too disruptive for the people that are in the area as well, I think it's definitely something we should consider.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, I think this is great feedback, and it sounds like we want to do some more outreach to the businesses and the community and see what the thoughts are at this moment about whether the businesses really want this, and through the chamber, we can make that ask and then decide if we bring it back to council.
Yeah, and when it comes back, it'd be great if they could come, like we could have a,
Yeah, I mean, that's all great input,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much. Is there anything more on that item?
Oh, great idea.
Okay, so I will just conclude by making sure everybody knows that we are having a forum on fire preparedness.
oh,
I've joined with the mayor of Belvedere, and they're not paying. No, I'm just kidding.
They're
There's
not
no
they're
cost.
not paying.
There's no cost. I have to bring the water. No, sorry, don't write that. Okay, so
It's on
there's
video.
no
It's on video.
cost. Yeah, I know, I'm on video. Anyway, so it's gonna be at the library. It's gonna be starting at 5:30. There's a reception at 6 o'clock is the program. And it's on Tuesday, the 25th. That's this Tuesday. I really hope all of the council members and staff, if they want to, and John and Parker and Francisco and everyone can come. The intent is really to help our residents get prepared for wildfires, disasters, and to hear from Southern Marin Fire, Tiburon Fire, and the Office of Emergency Management. So I think it's going to be a really good program. I would love for you guys to all come and bring friends.
So I have two items for reports.
Please.
One is to piggyback on what you just said. I think it's a great initiative. Very excited it's happening. Sorry, it's a little early for me, but I'll try and be there. It's before my 6:30 time frame. But I've actually heard from residents that there's a lot of interest and concern about that, especially after what happened in Los Angeles. And in particular, I don't know if it's the right forum, but I know people want to talk about evacuation routes from downtown, and especially in light of the proposed additional units that are going to be built there. You know, I have no idea if this stuff is possible, but you know, people were talking about, you know, what about coastal evacuation, you know, on the water, or I mean, how can we get people out of there if we need to? There's just a lot of concern that I think might come up at that meeting. The second thing I want to raise is something that I've talked about with the mayor, and that is I've been contacted by the folks from Our Neighborhood Voices, which is the group that is proposing an initiative to change the way, change the system for designating housing in California. I think we have on numerous occasions been asked by residents in meetings here, are we pulling all the levers we can to deal with what's being asked of us in terms of 639 new units in Tiburon, and what I think many of us think is going to be potentially a harmful impact on the town for trying to build that many new units in this short period of time in our town. In addition to simply complying, you know, the other levers that exist are litigation and lobbying. And so I think hearing from these folks, I think would be very valuable. They're sort of the principal group that is attempting to come up with an alternative system for housing. When we discussed this, I think the proposal that, and I don't want to speak for you, for the mayor, but the proposal that came out was that we should have perhaps a dedicated session to housing, and that Our Neighborhood Voices could be one of the participants. I don't mind that. That would be fine. But I think what I'd like to do is I would like to respond to their proposal of coming and speaking to us sometime in the next few weeks. Identify a time when they can come and present to us what it is their initiative says, what they're trying to achieve, so that we can be informed about it and the residents can be informed about it. And if we want to include others on the same agenda, we can do that.
Because there are other groups. I mean, I get their
Right.
emails.
Yeah, so I think what I wanted to do was to create a forum on housing. I don't think it's the topic of a town council meeting. That's kind of what we discussed, and having a forum where
Yeah.
they can come and other people can come and we can all come. It would be a meeting that we
It
would
would be
come
it would
to.
be a quorum meeting.
Well, it would be a meeting that we would also go to, but we don't have
But
speakers.
we can't talk about that subject unless it's a formal meeting.
Well, we could
Can
notice
I-
it, but no.
Can I ask a question?
But I don't think it's the topic of a meeting.
Is,
at the town
is the
I agree.
difference between a forum and a meeting, where in a forum, we're not necessarily discussing town business. We're just listening to
Input, yeah.
content and input versus.
Let's have Ben, town attorney, answer that question.
Yeah, so forum is just another term. I mean, it depends on who's sponsoring the forum. So if it's a third party sponsoring the forum, it's not a Brown Act meeting if you all participate as part of the program. So if this group comes to Tiburon, rents space and holds a community forum, there's no Brown Act issue as long as you participate as part of that program. It's an exemption of the Brown Act. Another forum is a special meeting, like a study session or something along those lines, where we notice it's a town meeting and we dedicate it just for a certain purpose.
That was my understanding of what you were proposing. Is that,
No, I was talking.
I don't wanna have-
Let's talk offline.
well, no, okay.
Let's talk offline
We
about
can
this
talk offline,
because
but I think it's important for
yeah,
the
it's-
council to schedule it, in my opinion.
Once a month.
Yeah.
okay,
That-
well,
that-
we talked about
yeah.
doing a forum,
Yeah.
not a council meeting.
I don't
Anyway,
think forum is a well-defined term.
okay, we can talk offline, John. I think there's yeah.
I mean, there are events where multiple council members from many different towns in Marin all get together once a month, and that is a forum, right? So there is a
Sure, that is a meeting, yeah.
MCCMC.
Okay,
is what-
so
yeah,
I'm
I
not
don't think
gonna-
that's a Brown Act.
Okay, I'm
meeting.
not gonna get into
Right.
to a big Brown Act discussion. This was just an announcement. It's not on the agenda. So we're gonna end this. And are there any more reports?
I do have one, Councilmember.
Please
I
go
have
ahead.
one too.
Okay,
Please go ahead.
so there's a group of neighbors near here, actually on Moore West, that is interested in forming a utility undergrounding district. In 2018, I believe it was, the council rescinded the town's policy, hoping for a better one to evolve. And so accordingly, Councilmember Fredericks and I, as the utility undergrounding subcommittee, have met. And at some point in the next month or so, we will be coming to the council with recommendations for a new policy to help these guys and other future districts get wires underground.
So that is fantastic news. And I hope as part of that policy, you'll look into having PG&E pay for the undergrounding. I don't understand why our residents and why consumers pay for PG&E's infrastructure to be undergrounded. So that is something that I would like to see. I don't know if you can figure that one out, but I'm happy you guys are updating it. I think it's very important for the safety of our residents and the safety of the entire peninsula. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and I think the
Alex.
issue who pays for it starts by lobbying the CPUC. Yes, okay. And so I've been whining about our giving reports, and I really apologize that we've all decided to do it tonight, but I just want to run through what I've been doing because a lot of it shows you groups that are addressing the issues we've been bringing up. So there's a periodic meeting of all Southern Marin mayors and some of the council members, and one was held last month. And the discussions included who determines the fire hazard zones, the local jurisdictions or CAL FIRE. And now there's new legislation where it starts off with CAL FIRE, and some of the local jurisdictions are not happy with that. There's also a concern with the HCD process housing, how this goes on, what build out is going to look like in all the jurisdictions. One jurisdiction, for example, Sausalito, had their RNAs calculated by land that wasn't even in their jurisdiction. So, and it was really hard to argue their way out of that. And of course, there is concern about building in flood and groundwater hazard zones, not just sea level rise. Then there was a discussion of having, rather than MTC ABAG, the broader regional agency determine your part of the RENA, your regional housing number allocation, of having the supervisors in the counties do it because they're closer to the ground, they know what the land is about. And then there was concern that that would just start us all debating with each other. I've also been involved in the Bay Wave and Sea Level Rise project governance at the county. And basically, the governance issue is just trying to get us on board with consolidated projects because there's an urgency for planning for early funding eligibility because the larger jurisdictions with bigger hits, more assets that are at risk might have priority if we get behind them. There's also, as you know, the traffic study workshop, and this is just a factoid just to show what we're dealing with. Excuse me, on Tiburon Boulevard. They did a count at peak traffic time. They were there on the road doing it. They also had sensors in the road. The consultant did. There are 1,682 vehicles in the morning and 1,667 vehicles in the afternoon in the area west of Avenida Miraflores during peak traffic time. Single occupancy vehicles on the boulevard comprise 65% of the traffic. So basically, they're coming back with another draft of the study, and the study is to be used as a basis for recommendations to Caltrans of what we might want them to do to alleviate the problems. And that includes looking at roundabouts again. Almost everything on the list has been looked at before. Sometimes changed circumstances make it possible. Sometimes it's just an exercise to inform the public. So we'll see. I also serve on as well as the Transportation Authority of Marin's Commission on their executive committee. And at the last meeting, and you can look it up online, there was a discussion of the short-term impact of federal cuts on ongoing infrastructure projects. For TAM, in the shorter term, most funding is committed, and they're going to ramp up the approved projects to get the funds obligated. I've also been appointed to the subcommittee on Measure AA renewal so that we can renew the sales tax that gives every jurisdiction, including ours, infrastructure money. The legislative committee is not that active yet. 1,000 bills have been introduced as of last week, I know. But the committee is interested in various bills, including holding HCD more accountable, how they cough up the regional housing number allocations, and also having the housing element approvals a little more transparent process. Safe routes to schools, they reviewed the crossing guard need. Crossing guards are funded by TAM too. School routes and safety and crossing safety for the kids when they get off the buses is a concern, in addition to getting kids on bikes and walking instead of, right? And then finally, and I'm sorry Jessica is not here, we have started working on the Earth Day 55th anniversary wrap-up event. That will be, we won't close for now, we are not closing Tiburon Boulevard. We're going to take the route that the soccer league takes from Zelinsky Park to Maggie's dock, where, and to get people to do that walk and go downtown, the bright idea, which actually was mine, was to give them tickets for food and treats at Zelinsky Park that they can only exchange for the goodies on Maggie's dock. And
Oh,
of course,
you understand people so well.
That's a great idea.
but what is a great idea is to have the everybody congregate at the Angel Island Ferry, which is the first short run ferry in the state to go all electric. And that concludes my reports for now. I could keep going on, but
Wow.
I think that's enough.
That's good.
So Alice, I just want to say something. You're an incredible inspiration to all of us. You serve on so many things and you do it with all of your mind, attention, and soul. And I really appreciate this report because it gives a great overview of all the things you're doing and all the boards that you're serving on behalf of the council and otherwise. And I just want to thank you because I know how much time you spend. And
Thank you. I hope what it really puts out there is what kinds of issues are being, and also serves as an example, because I know I've been whining for about 5 years for all of us to give reports.
You've set a very good example.
Thank you.
So thank you. Do you have the date for the Earth Day event?
It's tentative.
Oh, tentative. Okay. Just let us know when you have it.
You
And
betcha.
do we have any other reports or
Um,
anything?
Just one,
Sure.
one more. A couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with the town manager about our PG&E undergrounding funds from, what is
Rule
it called
20.
again? Rule 20.
Rule 20A.
So we have what sounds like a pretty substantial amount in what is going to be expiring Rule 20A funds. I know they're separate issues, but they are geographically connected. Mar West and the existing, uh, Greg, what is it called?
The district, the
The
underground.
district, undergrounding,
Yeah.
the undergrounding district for Rule 20 that was established and Mar West are geographically connected. So would be great to see if we could possibly explore, not necessarily combining them formally, but if I'm a contractor and I get to do two jobs, or if there's a way to somehow, um, get something bigger done that would help the town also, worth exploring.
Great call.
Okay, great. Do we have any more reports? Okay, seeing none, I'm adjourning the meeting and we will see you in a couple weeks.
This is great. I like to hear